Welcome to I'm Your Target Demographic, and today we're finishing up our series on the 7 wonders of the world as we cover our latest era, the modern era. This list is much more about changing the way the world works and technical innovation as opposed to art or beauty. This list was compiled in 1994 by the American Society of Civil Engineers, a worldwide organization and expert in groundbreaking civil engineering. I've decided to use their list to focus on today. We begin our tour in Panama with the Panama Canal. Before this invention, ships had to travel around the tip of South America, and it was dangerous traveling. Several countries contributed to building an artificial waterway that cut through Panama, starting with the French in the late 1800s. It is said that over 20,000 men died in this attempt from disease and accidents. United States President Roosevelt led the charge of taking over the venture, which was then seen by some as an act of war on Colombia, who controlled Panama at the time. There's a lot of story here that I won't cover, but eventually the canal opened in 1914, and it is considered the largest construction effort ever on behalf of the United States, costing over $9 billion in today's currency. The canal runs roughly 50 miles and includes several artificial lakes and locks that can be used to adjust water levels and to allow travel through. We now head to the United Kingdom for the Channel Tunnel, nicknamed the Chunnel. This underwater tunnel connects the United Kingdom with northern France and travels for 31 miles underwater. It was finished in 1994 after many years of debate. Surveying for this tunnel began back in the mid-1800s, but there were always concerns, including how enemy forces could use tunnels like this for invasion. With the invent of air travel, those concerns dwindled over time. Instead of distance, let's start looking at height. We first go to Toronto, Canada, and look at the CN Tower. It was the world's tallest tower until 2009, when it was just recently overtaken. It stands at 1,813 feet, or 553 meters. Today, it's the third tallest tower, and the tallest in the Western Hemisphere. The tower is lit extensively, often matching up with holidays and other significant events. The function of the tower is to broadcast things, such as radio and television signals. More recently, cell phone providers have also begun using the tower. There are 2 modern-era wonders in the United States itself, the first being the Empire State Building in New York City, standing at 1,250 feet, or 380 meters. The construction required about 3,000 workers at a time and took only a few years, but it resulted in the first building in the world with over 100 stories. 85 of these stories are commercial and office space that is rentable. The above stories are the observation decks and the hollow inside of the spire. Visiting this observation deck is almost required viewing for New York visitors. We now head to the other side of the country to San Francisco, in California, for the Golden Gate Bridge. This bridge, when it opened, was the longest and tallest suspension bridge in the world. It took about 5 years to build, but is still being continuously renovated and repainted. The bridge has also recently been outfitted with movable barriers that can help manage traffic during peak hours, changing which lanes are dedicated to which directions. The bridge is also unfortunately known for a high amount of suicide attempts, so there are suicide barriers being installed to catch potential jumpers, which will take around 4 years to install and $200 million. We now venture to the barrier of Brazil and Paraguay, to the Itaipu Dam. This massive hydroelectric power plant creates a massive amount, breaking records in 2016 and producing the most energy out of all the hydroelectric dams in the world. About 3,000 employees work at the dam, which produced 103 million megawatt hours in 2016. The dam started running in 1984, but a massive expansion in 2007 allowed for more capacity. On the downside, over 10,000 families living in this area were displaced when the dam was constructed. Our last wonder of the modern era takes us to the Netherlands. There was a historic problem of flooding, with many areas with low coastlines. 2 projects were undertaken, the Delta Works and the Zuiderzee Works. These projects hope to solve the flooding problems by building dams and by creating new land masses, called polders, where they could dam an area and then remove the water. This complex process throughout the Netherlands resulted in a unique way to control flooding and remove serious risks. The Zuiderzee Works began first in the 1920s and lasted through the 60s, while the Delta Works process began in the 50s and the last project concluded in the late 1990s. And that's it! Our look through the 7 wonders of the world through both ancient world, the Middle Ages, and then today's modern era. So we've covered a lot, and hopefully you found this interesting. Hopefully you learned about places that you've never heard about, those places that now are on your bucket list, places you want to check out. If you're new to this channel, I want to make sure you know about kind of